Hello, and welcome to the No Bad Questions podcast, where I try to learn in a conversational manner by sitting down with people who have interesting careers, important lessons to tell, or inspiring stories. I hope that you learn something too. If you want to support the podcast, please follow or subscribe on your platform of choice. You can also like or comment to boost the algorithms or share out to your network to make sure it gets more views. But ultimately, and what I hope you choose to do, is listen to the very end. With that, we'll start today's podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the No Bad Questions podcast. My guest today is Mark Russell Filaroski. He is a three-time 10 million plus bootstrapped founder. He's a 3 times Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in America recognee. He's mentored over 200 startups. He's an investor whose largest exit is $149 million. He says his passions are people, processes, and solving big problems. He's a true entrepreneur at heart. He loves working with customers to tech enable their pain points by building winning teams, products, and solutions. He says that he's a fair leader, but his team has veto rights on that. Mark Russell, thank you for joining me.
Super to be here, David. Thank you for having me today.
So, what is a founder, and is it, or how is it different than an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I think with any profession, skills come at all levels, right? And there's different ways we, or labels that we give people. So, a founder truly, in my mind, is someone that's, maybe entrepreneurial in nature, but has founded an organization, a company, and has taken an idea, beyond just ideation and whiteboards. So for me, founders are a rare breed. And typically they're ones that really kind of wake up in the morning excited to solve problems, and blaze a path forward. A lot of what we do as founders in entrepreneurship, of course, day after day after day, is solving problems. So I think I think for true founders are people that build businesses out of ideas. Now, entrepreneurs, on the other hand, can be a wide array of people and professions per se, but in kind of generically speaking, I would say that typically entrepreneurs are people who have a lot of ideas and they're very creative. So that's how I'd label the two.
So maybe a founder is a subset of entrepreneurs. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair, it's a fair point. Again, I think taking ideas and we as entrepreneurs look at, a lot of ideas, a lot of different things. We're creative with those ideas. We ping pong those ideas back and forth. But typically founders are people that want to structure an organization, a team, a product around a problem and bring it to market. So, I do think the best of founders are rare. So, more rare than, say, entrepreneurs. There's tens of millions of entrepreneurs.
That's true. Yeah, there are a lot of business owners across the country. And, all of them, I suppose, are by definition entrepreneurs, but based on what you've shared here, maybe not all of them are founders with a capital F. So, that makes sense. How did you get started on that? I looked at your background. I mean, you haven't always been doing the founder thing, always in business for yourself, but you got into that, from what I could tell, it looked like earlier in your career. How did you get started?
Well, David, that's a great question. I think very early on in my life, I realized that I like money, and to have money early on.
I appreciate your candor on that.
But to have money early on, it took being, somewhat entrepreneurial and founding things and doing things maybe outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a teenager growing up, I wanted things. I wanted a new bike. I wanted a new skateboard. Back in those days, we built a quarter pipe, and I needed a lot of plywood, so someone had to pay for that. So, in order to do that, I started a small lawn mowing business, or I would shovel snow and make money on, before school on snow days. And so,
Love it.
Yeah, very early on in my life, I transacted with people. So it enabled the progression of sales, right? Sales is communicating and good communication between two people. And then, you start to realize as you make money, you have to do things like pay taxes. So you do get that business layer very early on. After I left college, my first startup was in Los Angeles, and I joined a 6-person startup in a garage in Manhattan Beach, California, if you can imagine. And very quickly we built that company from 0 to 10 million, and that really set me on the path of building companies, founding and executing on these ideas. And for me personally, my preference is to get them going, not necessarily to live with them through my entire life. There's phases of, companies go through phases, and I really focus in, and my, my area of expertise and my preference is to work from the kind of 0 to 10 million, 0 to 20 million phase, where the company is a lot less political per se or corporate. And it's still, you're 0 to 50 employees. You still know everybody by name. For the most part, you have a good rapport with the team. And that's
right.
always suited me very well.
Okay. And so one of the things I feel like has been talked about a lot in the last 5-6 years, maybe more before the COVID lockdowns and the COVID situation, but the 2015 to 2020 window was do a side hustle, do a business, become an entrepreneur, strike out on your own. It was a very common societal story to hear. But it sounds like you have certain maybe personality elements that lend yourself this direction. Do you feel like, you've said you think founders are rare, but do you think entrepreneurialism is for everyone?
I think we can be entrepreneurial, certainly small side hustles, small side projects, and entrepreneurial doesn't always have to mean a business, right? There are layers to that cake, so to speak. So, yes, I think as human beings on this planet, we certainly are entrepreneurial. We look at things, we try to fix them, we try to make them better, we try to adapt them to our environments. So yes, I think, entrepreneurial is ingrained in human nature. And then I think there's a select few that are crazy enough, to decide, okay, I want to go build a company around this particular idea or, software or whatever it is.
I love that. I think that I think that's a really great insight into the human mind and the human psyche, and I feel like we all have our reasons maybe to not do something fully on our own, but the ability to be entrepreneurial, but not necessarily as your be all end all, to have that side gig or the element of your life that you treat as in an entrepreneurial way is a fascinating way to look at it. So you in particular are a serial entrepreneur, a serial founder. In your intro that you gave me, you talked about how many times you've been you've founded and created and scaled some companies, and then that you like that early stage. So, but I also have to imagine that those early stages of a business, I've never been a founder. I've never been an entrepreneur who started something from scratch beyond maybe say this podcast, but is not close to what you've done. What seems like that'd be really stressful, a really stressful time in the lifespan of a business, in the lifespan of a technology. So are you some sort of masochist that you like the pain of it? Like, what? Tell me about the psychology of enjoying that phase of a business.
Yeah, David, that is a great question. And I did say that today in another conversation, so I want to talk about that in detail. I think you have to love the pain. And it's like a marathoner or someone that's in the triathlon process or anything really worth striving for. It's going to take an inordinate amount of effort. And so with that, comes pain, right? We all have areas, as professionals, just keeping up with our one individual profession is a ginormous job in today's world. We have information overload. We have new laws seemingly by the second. And so you can imagine a founder, and again, my crazy is not a great word to use, but you do have to be, pretty darn determined and willing to take on a lot of pain if you're going to go start a company, which are 4, 5, 6 positions, right? And now you're keeping up with all of the things going on in that particular, in those areas. So I do think founders, I think the best of founders, use a process. I don't think it's just you wing it. Because if you wing it, you're going to fail, and it's so painful, you're not going to wing it again. So maybe first-time founders, you get a hall pass, and you're going to make some mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes. Trust me. Happy to talk to anybody about those. Young founders, call me, reach out to me. I'm happy to walk you through those. But once you start building process to it, there's still, quite a bit you have to get right. But you start hiring better people. You start, really taking care of the interview processes, right? Are you sure you want this job? And we've seen it with other startups like Zappos. Tony's no longer with us, unfortunately, but, he would pay people to leave as an incentive because those first, formidable years are very difficult. So I would say, the best founders have a very high threshold for, a lot of chaos, a lot of early pain. But there's also equally, I think, to be fair, that much more in rewards. So what I mean by that is it's an amazing time to see people grow. You have very young people join your team. They are scared. They're green, right? They come in and they start getting thrown work and they are firefighting at best. But those people that really excel in these environments, you see them grow so quickly. You see them fall in love with the vision or the mission of the company, and you see them transform to really be just great individuals. They seemingly can take on the world, and they have a lot of happiness doing it. So I would say. A more experienced founder is going to see that, right, and know that with all the pain, there's going to be a lot of gain, and so that's a lot of the reasons why I'm doing this particular startup. So,
and one of the things then that I wonder, you mentioned first-time founders, and so for them, or for somebody like me who's sort of looking over the fence at your world, just trying to understand it better. There's a lot, like every industry, there's a lot of jargon and nomenclature. An A series, a bootstrap startup, runway, all these things. Where is the glossary published for people to better understand your universe?
Yeah, that's a great question. You really have to get into specific areas to find the acronym. I often say in startups, specifically when you're selling a new product into a vertical, you have to understand their nomenclature. And that's exactly what you're asking here is how do I find the hack, between, say, startups and really my advice would be, if you want to get the nomenclature around investment, then go sit on, the top 10 VC, go sign up for the top 10 VCs, their email list, start reading their reports, look into S1s, understand what's going on. And then if you want to delve deeper, certainly the SEC is a treasure trove of, information. You spend the rest of your life there. People go to, school for 12 years to do that. So, but every area, you're right, has its own, speak and, my advice is, find the top 10, find the and start there and work your way down. So it's the easiest way, on development or building software products, Stack Overflow is not going to hurt you, go there or again, sign up to, a few, dev channels. There's certainly plenty of information out there, and try to find your way around product. Marketing, again, Martech's a good place to start. So there's certainly a plethora of information out there. Some's great, some's not so great. So, pick and choose your poison, but try to pick wisely, try to find, who are doing things in those particular verticals. And then you can find that typically the quote unquote speak for that market.
Okay. We've talked about some of your successes and some of the things that it takes to be a successful founder. The love for the challenge and tolerance for chaos and so forth. But one of the things, I think you commented on something on LinkedIn about this recently, an article maybe or something like that, is that I've been fascinated with is this concept of companies that maybe look successful. And the terminology I've heard used is a zombie company. Can you elaborate what is a zombie company?
Yeah. So, if you've been in the game long enough, you realize that, numbers can get conflated, quite easily. And, there's a lot of hype in and around, the way, say, a company might have early traction, a startup company might have, lots of users coming on platform, and there's some sort of anticipated revenue down the road downstream, and it's quite difficult for VCs to get that right, because I don't want to name companies because certainly I don't want to be liable, but we all remember
Sure.
A recent company where you could leave a voice note. It was a voice platform, very quickly grew to millions of users. And today I don't even think that's around. So it is easy to get caught up on the hype. So a zombie company typically is a company that is finding early traction, but ultimately won't monetize that traction. Something will happen. There's a change. One, the numbers are being conflated. Two, there's a change in market dynamics, which happens quite frequently. Three, a much bigger competitor comes into a space. There's a lot of reasons. A startup won't make it, but typically those are the real reasons. Now, I'd like to say, one other reason is it's really easy to get a lot of money and not be wise with that money. And unfortunately, I think we've probably all been guilty in our life, of getting a windfall. It could be $100, $1,000. It depends where you are in life. Could be millions. But, we get $100. We get it in our pocket. We run around. We buy a new pair of Nikes. We treat ourselves to a burger. Whatever, before you know it, that money's gone. And we're giving a lot of money to
Right.
very young companies and very talented companies and founders and developers and whatnot. But, there really needs to be these layers that we're seeing today, in the market, where people are saying we have to be fiscally responsible. as startups, right? So there is a big, like in the VC world today, that's, it's on every headline, it is, conservative, right? Financial conservative. So, I would
Right.
say that could be a zombie company as well. Just because, a lot of money was put into a bank account and a lot of money went out the door. A lot of bad hires were made. That's typically not how businesses are scaled. You still have to hire the right people. You still have to get product market fit very, very right. And that's very hard to do. And, there's a million other layers, but that, on the surface, that's what I would say a zombie company is.
Okay. Thank you for elaborating on that concept, since at least as of this recording, it seems to be something that's being talked about quite a bit, just with recession and so forth. One of the things that I know you're an active coach and that you've mentored a lot of other entrepreneurs and founders. They say, I don't know who they is, but they say that one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And so what have you learned? What's the biggest thing you've learned from being a mentor?
I mean, everything I know today. There's the old expression where, once you learn a lot, you don't know anything. And again, I don't know that exact adage or quote, but it's 1,000% true. I've been very fortunate in my life to have people that trusted me enough with their careers, their startups. These are big decisions, and share with me what they're doing and what they want to build. And I will tell you, 9 out of 10 times those people are at least 10x smarter than I am, if not 100 times smarter than I am, and probably some 1,000. But so I'm very humbled, by that process to get to work with one. Some of the best engineering talent when they were very young. One of them today is building $1 billion business. It's probably already a unicorn. Lot of stories like that. But I'm humbled every day, and the lesson that I want to talk about a little bit, because I am 49 years old. And probably too old for the startup game, but I am doing this one more startup. The lesson I've really learned, by now, is that it's taught me a lot about humility. It's taught me, a lot about patience. I wouldn't say I am the most patient person in the world, but it has taught me those lessons, and it's taught me really, to be okay with, the fact that, someone's going to come to you and they're going to put one of the biggest decisions in their life on your lap. And it's okay for me to tell them, yes, I can help you, or no, I can't. And that's a humbling, experience, because, you really, as a human being, you really grow. And so I've been, I think very fortunate. I don't have another way to put it. If we wanted to get into a very specific niche area, or you want an example, I have 2 PhDs who wrote checks to me for SeeSnap. They both have PhDs in artificial intelligence. I will say that me being able to see the inner workings of that world over the last 2 years, is incredible. I almost feel like I'm a citizen sitting inside Tesla while they're building rockets, right? But on the other side, and so I feel just incredibly honored that they even sit and talk to me about very heady and very interesting challenges that they're solving, and how we can solve it better for mankind, and what some of the risks might be for AI and in the future of, say, our jobs, and, things that I think matter. I mean, ultimately, we want to be productive citizens of Earth. And, it would be nice to, make sure that we don't work for bots someday. So that's been very interesting.
Yeah, I think avoiding the rise of the machine overlords is probably good, but I also think that the fact of the demographics, just raw demographics of population decline in most countries across the world indicates that we have to learn how to automate more. Just to me, that's like a fact. So the question is, how do we go about it in a savvy, financially sound, and ethical way? So it sounds like you're doing some interesting work. And so let's turn to your current work rather than some of your past and some of the mentoring and coaching. And you mentioned your current organization's name, SeeSnap. What is SeeSnap?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. And SeeSnap was born out of the idea that photo-based work does not exist. If you think of the way that we use technology today, as humans, as consumers, right? We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Snapchat, we're on TikTok, whatever platform you have, and yet we're relegated to, data entry or, phone home tech, and it's really frustrating. If you think about the working world,
right,
which I'm in today, there's 2.7 billion deskless workforce out there in the world, and less than 1% of venture capital has gone to that particular subset. And we're talking about the most important things as far as civilization. I mean, agriculture, 800 million people, yet we don't know what they do. We don't know the food they produce. We don't see a lot of what's happening. So, SeeSnap was born out of this idea that we need to bring photo-based workflow to these markets to better serve us and to better serve the businesses that are out there doing this work every day.
So can you give me or the audience, for instance, of what you mean? Like deskless worker. So that's, anybody who's probably not in an office. So retail, farmers, construction, etc.
Yep.
But can you talk about the application? How does it work? Not necessarily how does it work, but I mean, how does it create the benefit?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. So, I'm going to start with a very, very basic use case because those typically will resonate. But right now I have a deck builder in Colorado using SeeSnap. Okay. He has one person that's doing the project plans on the deck. He has a group of subcontractors that he hires to come in and, nail boards or screw boards down and cut wood and pour concrete and et cetera, et cetera. He has typically, two homeowners that own the property. And, the way that world works today is, you're getting a lot of phone calls at 9:00 at night. You're getting a lot of text messages, which don't really communicate the problem. You don't see the problem. And even if you're using a current messaging application in the market, it's only really good for one-to-one communication. So with SeeSnap, what we enable is you to bring all of those people to a centralized location. We allow you to share photos in real time, and those photos are what we call smart photos. So we enable those through metadata that we give to the customers. We use, light artificial intelligence, convolutional network layers to tell you what's in that image data so that, it's important to know an apple's an apple or, a deck's a deck. For fraud cases, for phony and, claims for insurance companies, it goes on and on and on. So you have to have that photo proof. But we just simply bring everyone into that ecosystem, and we allow our users to also assign, track, approve, and we auto-generate before and after photos through that entire workflow process. So if you can imagine, from the front end, a photo can be data entry, right? So as simple as a snap inside SeeSnap, and then on the end of a job or a task or whatever it may be, the person doing the work completes it. The only thing they have to do is snap a photo inside SeeSnap, and then the approvals happen on the backside. So again, you don't have to drive across town to approve work or any of those other things. So very simply, we just simplified we centralize photo-based workflow in what I would call an enterprise layer messaging application.
So in the pandemic, which timing I would not recommend to anyone, my family, my wife and I, we built a house.
Oh, wow.
And it had a number of headaches. And I'm hearing how you're laying this out, and I think that my feeling was that the home building industry, from an outsider's perspective, has a lot of opportunity for optimization. And it sounds like your tool could certainly help project management or general contractors improve the management of their relationship with their subcontractors. And again, I don't live in that universe, so I'm just kind of projecting my opinions onto it. But it like as a use case, that sounds exactly like what you're trying to solve for there.
Yes. Yeah, again, a lot of the processes are, think about it, pen and paper, Post-it notes, right, tape on walls. And, digitizing the process in 2022 certainly makes sense. And so, beyond smart photos, of course, this means, all the additional layers that we can add where data entry through completion of work is in a snap, so literally in a second. So remember, this deskless workforce, they're not able to, remember, it's 110 degrees on that roof. It's hard to see a mobile screen, right? It's hard to type in when you've got 9 jobs to do on a construction site, right? All of these things. And so I feel like, and my team certainly feels like, the future of work is going to be in a tap, and in our case, in a snap. So we're really kind of putting a lot of resources and effort to make work as simple as possible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so now, as we kind of enter into the second half of our time, or the last third of our time, I want to get to what I had originally reached out to you about. So as of this recording, it hasn't released, but episode 11, I connected with a lady who's kind of doing the rental side hustle. She's not getting rich from it. She's not making her living from it, but she's got some long-term rentals and she has some short-term, VRBO, AirBNB type rentals. And one of the things that struck me that she talked about was, the management of those short terms and how to manage it and how she's doing that remotely, right? Because it's a vacation spot that she owns, and people can go listen to that one to get the full details, but she has to manage all that maintenance and so forth and cleaning remotely. And it felt like that would be really hard to scale. And then I saw an article about the challenge of scaling that versus long-term rentals where it's a well-established industry. There's plenty of, home rental management companies, or hotels. Hotels are, there's plenty of management companies there, large corporations. And you weighed in the comments section or whatever and said, hey, we're helping with that. So I think there's a lot of people out there looking at either maybe they're like this lady who's got, a couple and wants to potentially scale. Maybe there's people who are out there just thinking about getting into the short-term rental situation, industry, business, side hustle, whatever you want to call it. But is the way that you're helping that, is that through SeeSnap? Is there another tool that you've got out there that is helping? How are you helping to scale that in an area where a lot of people are saying this is really hard to scale? Yeah,
so great question. And yes, there's millions of tools, but we at SeeSnap think we can help there. And we're very focused, in and around property management and, what it takes to manage, like you said, 2, 3, 4, 10 properties. Certainly at scale, right? A lot of these companies have, 4, 10, 20, 100 vendors. And, they are managing either, daily, weekly, monthly, these properties, for someone like, and we're going to use a hypothetical name because I apologize, I don't know this lady's name, but let's say Mary. But for Mary, who is in Ohio and her 2 rental units are in Florida, she has to trust right? That every time someone leaves her vacation during that 1 or 2 day period, that all of that work is getting done. And, the reference point I always make
Right.
here is, do you buy anything off Amazon without looking at the photo? The answer is probably no, you don't. You never, I don't blindly buy anything. So why are we paying for, say, a ceiling fan replacement or being told it's being replaced? We don't really see it. We're not getting a visual proof of that, or, a thermostat, or, the vents, the vent coverings, the filters, that's, the cleaning. So there is a plethora of services happening within her
Right.
properties where she is not getting visibility. Now, that's one particular use case in property management. I would say, too, that you don't know often who committed the crime. I don't have a better word, but if something is broken, you're not quite sure. Was it the tenant before or the tenant after, or maybe someone in that process? So again, this is where photos act as an insurance policy to managing, your short-term property rentals. And it again, it takes less than a few seconds to snap 4 or 5 photos, have them stored in a particular channel in SeeSnap, your unit. And it's very easy to share. It's very easy to bring people in. And so we are starting that process of saying, how do we make this easy for, owners, second homeowners, and short-term property rental owners, or people that are, trying to scale their business to, 10, 15, 20 units, say it's for retirement. And beyond that, we think, SeeSnap can offer a fintech layer, within our application that gets very, very exciting. So now you're getting an actual proof of work photo. You're getting some sort of declarative statement that it was done. You're getting the metadata when it was done, so you can track fixes, for future, claims or anything else. And you, again, if you're, 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away, this is very simple. So you're not taking another 30-minute phone call, you're not chasing down vendors. You're not, taking time out of your day, or lots of time out of your day to now, manage these tasks. So we look at it as an opportunity. It's certainly a challenging opportunity. It's, we have not solved it perfectly at SeeSnap, but again, this is why we offer, free betas for customers just like these, and they can come in and work with us, and we're pretty quick to ship software. So we love the space, we love the opportunity. We don't see anyone that's doing it at the level we think we can, and if at all, not to throw any vendor under the bus there, but we don't really see anybody doing it, and we just think there's a huge opportunity to bring back some clarity to these folks, right? Their life, peace of mind. It's a very important asset of theirs, and anything we can do, we're interested in doing. So
that makes sense. And a couple things in there. One of them is the power of the metadata, because I think that's really fascinating. Because if I just you mentioned a ceiling fan repair. Let's say a ceiling fan was broken and it needed replaced. In theory, I could just send the same, if I'm a person of ill intent, I could just have a picture of a ceiling fan and send that to my client from 1,000 miles away, and how are you going to check it?
Yep.
But if it's married with that metadata, I can make sure that picture was taken today from my condo, my cabin in the woods, my whatever, not 4 months ago from San Bernardino, or whatever, right? Like it's that metadata marriage with all those other elements, I think, is really powerful in what you're talking about. And so I think that's pretty cool. Is SeeSnap is out there, it's live, people can go get it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, David. It's live on iOS and Android, and we're in the process today of shipping pretty big update we're excited about, and within the next 60 days or so, we'll have it on desktop for our users. We did build this kind of API ground up, so we're going to have a dev product soon as well, so it can integrate with other software systems and applications out there. So for a small team, my team has certainly done an amazing job.
That's awesome. Let me back up. I said we wanted to be on this narrow topic of the short-term rental here, but I hope people can kind of get the picture of that one. So I do want to back up. And you mentioned that venture capital and investment has not necessarily flowed to these areas of these deskless workers across the world. And yet I think a lot of those areas are where, and we've seen this in the pandemic, where society rests on the shoulders of a lot of those people. And so it just makes me wonder, why not? Why is there not as much tech enablement tool and digital tool enablement of those professions, because they're such critical professions to modern society? Any thoughts on that?
It's a great question. It really is, and I think for a long time, we're still pretty early in software, right? I mean, we're not, we are X years, on a 1,000-year continuum. So we're still very early. I think the very early days of software was primarily infrastructure, right? And speed and if you think about it, we were typing on a keyboard in the 70s and 80s, but there was nothing there, and so. But the infrastructure really kind of was our focus, and I think as we mature, and as the industry starts to get a little bit more mature, because I still think it's very young, extremely young, and I think we start to look at all these markets now, and thanks to the advent, just wonderful creators out there, who said we don't want a cell phone this big, and we're going to put it on a screen like this. It really helped us usher in this, the ability to look at all markets, right, and all jobs and all people. And I think we're probably on this next push of how do we tech enable the world in a good way, not necessarily, I don't think we need, the 1,000 of the same apps per se, but how do we tech enable our lives?
Right.
And it's a big question, and I think now is the time it's happening. I think if you look at the way what Elon's doing with satellites, and even say Facebook, and I don't have any affinity to any company, but just in general, they are out there trying to connect the world to the the interwebs, and I think we just happen to be in a perfect time to take on this deskless economy and really kind of tech enable these roles and jobs, which I think benefit us all. Like you said, these are things we count on and rely on, and you would almost take for granted at times.
Right.
And I think SeeSnap can be a big tool in that play, and whether it's your HOA or your city or town and reporting potholes, I think eventually it's going to be a product like SeeSnap, right? It's going to enable you to participate in your community and in your things outside of just your own properties per se, or jobs or tasks or whatever. So the future is very bright for this market.
I definitely agree. The thing you just mentioned, I love it. I want every Department of Transportation across the country to get in on SeeSnap. The idea of I can take a picture of the local pothole that keeps breaking my wheel when I go around the turn and send it over to, in my case in Ohio, ODOT, and they've got all the metadata to know exactly where it was.
Yep.
Whether they do anything about it is different, but at least, hey, sort of crowdsourcing knowledge on where the infrastructure is in need of some work is a cool idea,
yes,
amongst many of the others that we've talked about today, and that I'm sure you're working on. So it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I just want to say, if I get a deal from TDOT because of this podcast, I will send you a check in perpetuity for commission. So anyone can find me on LinkedIn. Again, I'm not much on social media. My children, my daughter certainly loves social. I'm too busy to spend my time there, but LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Connect, like I said earlier in the show. I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs, especially younger, entrepreneurs trying to become founders per se. And, that's really my wheelhouse, and, happy to spend, 20, 30 minutes. And my email, I don't mind giving out, is mark@seesnap.com. And, if someone wanted to reach out there too, that would be fine.
Well, Mark Russell, thank you for being with me. It sounds like you're doing some really cool things, some things that either nobody else is pursuing, or maybe they're not as far along as you, or whatever the case might be. But I'm excited to see the future of SeeSnap. And I just love the various applications of it and the opportunity. So thank you for being with me here on No Bad
Awesome,
Questions.
David. Thank you again. Great time here, and really appreciate all you've done. So thank you very much.